3 continents should never be governable by one system. Distance alone destroys authority, and culture multiplies that problem into something unmanageable. Different languages, different gods, different laws, and different ideas of loyalty usually tear empires apart from the inside. History is full of massive states that expanded too fast and collapsed under their own weight. Yet one ancient empire did what should have been impossible and held Europe, Asia, and Africa together at the same time. That empire was the Achaemenid Empire, and the reason it worked wasn't brute force. Most empires believed power meant controlling people directly, but the Persians understood something more uncomfortable. The more you interfere with identity, the more resistance you create. The harder you try to erase differences, the more those differences harden into rebellion. So instead of asking how to rule everyone the same way, they asked how to rule different people without making them feel ruled. That single shift in thinking quietly changed everything. When the Persians conquered new lands, they didn't arrive to erase culture. Temples weren't destroyed, languages weren't banned, and laws weren't rewritten just to assert dominance. Local traditions continued, daily life stayed familiar, and authority blended instead of replacing. This wasn't kindness, it was efficiency. People who recognize themselves in a system are far less likely to fight it. At the heart of this empire was a simple but radical idea: rule systems, not people. The Persians focused on only a few non-negotiables like taxation, security, and loyalty to the king. Everything else remained local. Farmers farmed the same way, merchants traded the same routes, and communities kept their customs. Obedience didn't feel like submission because life didn't feel foreign. This approach began under Cyrus, who understood that conquest without integration is temporary. Instead of ruling through humiliation, he positioned Persian authority as legitimate within existing traditions. Cities weren't stripped of identity. They were absorbed into a larger structure. Resistance stopped feeling heroic and started feeling pointless. The empire didn't just grow outward, it settled inward. As the empire expanded, its greatest danger wasn't invasion, but internal fracture. To prevent this, the Persians divided their territory into regions governed locally. Each region had a governor, but no governor held total power. Military authority, financial control, and legal oversight were intentionally separated. No single person could gather enough power to break away from the system. This separation of power quietly reshaped ambition itself. Officials depended on the system rather than rising above it. Even if someone wanted to rebel, they lacked the means to do it alone. Betrayal became dangerous instead of rewarding. Control didn't rely on fear, it relied on design. Oversight completed the design. Persian kings didn't micromanage, but they were never absent. Inspectors traveled the empire quietly, observing governors, soldiers, and tax officials without announcement. No one knew when they were being watched or who might report directly to the throne. That uncertainty enforced discipline more effectively than constant punishment ever could. Distance has destroyed more empires than enemies ever did. Orders that arrive too late are useless, and rebellion spreads faster than hesitation. The Persians solved this by building one of the ancient world's fastest communication networks. Messengers ran or rode between relay stations day and night, carrying orders across vast distances. Speed kept the empire synchronized before chaos could form. Economic stability reinforced everything else. The Persians standardized weights, measures, and taxation across their territory. Trade became predictable instead of chaotic. Merchants could travel enormous distances without relearning how the world worked in each city. Prosperity made rebellion irrational. Language could have fractured the empire, but flexibility prevented that too. Instead of forcing one administrative language, the Persians adapted. Records were kept in multiple scripts depending on region and purpose. Accuracy mattered more than cultural dominance. Efficiency mattered more than pride. Even the military reflected this philosophy. The Persian army wasn't culturally uniform. Soldiers from across the empire fought using their own weapons and tactics. This diversity made the army adaptable rather than rigid. More importantly, it gave conquered peoples a reason to defend the empire that protected their place within it. The system reached its most refined form under Darius, who formalized taxation, infrastructure, and administration. He didn't change the philosophy, he perfected it. Governance became scalable rather than fragile. Problems stayed local instead of spreading uncontrollably. The empire functioned like a modular machine. Architecture reinforced authority without threats. Cities like Persepolis weren't designed to intimidate with violence, but to project inevitability. Stone carvings showed tribute flowing peacefully toward the center. Order was visible, wealth was undeniable, and power felt permanent. Perception did half the work of armies. Here is the idea worth pausing on. Power scales best when control is centralized but life remains local. Too much control creates rebellion. Too little control creates chaos. The Persians balanced both, and that balance allowed their power to expand without breaking. If this way of thinking feels different, this channel exists for people who care about ideas that actually last. The Achaemenid Empire didn't collapse because its system was flawed. It weakened when later rulers stopped respecting its balance. Central authority overreached, trust eroded, and structure lost legitimacy. The fall wasn't sudden, it was structural. When belief in the system faded, the system followed. What makes this story uncomfortable is how modern it feels. Decentralization, audits, infrastructure, and cultural tolerance still form the backbone of stable governance today. The language has changed, but the logic hasn't. The Persians solved problems that many systems still struggle with. That is why this empire still matters. So the real question isn't how one empire governed 3 continents. The real question is why so many systems fail to learn from it. Power doesn't collapse because of enemies. It collapses because of bad structure. History keeps repeating that lesson, whether we listen or not. If you value ideas that survive trends, subscribe to Simplified Reads.